Hey, welcome to another video. So today we're going to be going into everything we know about Jedi Master YADDLE from Legends, but before we begin, please be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. So, over 200 years before the latter's ascension to the Jedi High Council, Jedi Knight Pulvin Cut and his Padawan YADDLE were dispatched to the planet Koba, located in the colony's region of space. They had been sent to liberate the planet from the warlord known as Tulak, who held the planet unlawfully in his tyrannical grip. Pulvin Cut had planned to enlist the assistance of a small resistance movement, who were angry with Tulak's exploitation of the people of Koba. However, the two Jedi were betrayed by Tulak's spies within the Koban resistance before they had even reached Koba's outer moon. Tulak, who had come up against the Jedi many times before and held a deep hatred for the Jedi Order, set up an ambush for the two peacekeepers. The madman used his vast amount of Koban slaves as warriors against Cut and YADDLE in battle over the Koban Gorge. Pulvin Cut, who was not as completely impervious to the dark side as most Jedi, had been tracking Tulak for decades after they murdered his family. Surrounded by Tulak's slaves and soldiers, who were brandishing primitive axes and blasters, Pulvin Cut let revenge affect his reactions and, more importantly, his judgment. In a vain attempt to kill Tulak, Cut left himself open for attack and was killed and beheaded by Tulak's slaves, leaving his Padawan YADDLE alone against dozens of vicious fighters. YADDLE was captured and imprisoned in a chamber deep underneath the ground by Tulak, and subjected to various forms of torture. However, the green-skinned Padawan did not give in to Tulak's torture, refusing to tell him when the next Jedi would arrive to challenge the brutal warlord after many interrogations. YADDLE simply replied that Tulak's reign of terror would end. Tulak, furious that YADDLE was not buckling under torture, decided to keep YADDLE as a hostage, even though she would not submit to his questioning. After reaping everything and everyone he could from the planet, Tulak decided he had enough of Koba, and prepared to make his way to another world, leaving his trusted marshals to watch over the remote planet. All of Tulak's previous attempts at breaking YADDLE had proven unsuccessful, and his original plan to exploit YADDLE's young naivety had failed. Rather than killing his captive, Tulak cruelly imprisoned YADDLE in the underground pit in case she ever became useful as a hostage in the future. Tulak soon forgot of Pulvin Cut's young apprentice, although the people of Koba did not. YADDLE's wardens taunted and jeered YADDLE through a gap in the ceiling in order to gain favor with Tulak's marshals. YADDLE stayed in solitary confinement in her underground prison for over a century, and her only source of provisions were the wardens, who sent down baskets of fruit and vegetables for a time. However, as supplies on Koba ran low, the wardens became too preoccupied with their own survival that they slowly forgot about the one below. YADDLE's existence became the stuff of legend, and although a few pitiful beings continued to send food down the shaft as a sort of ritual, YADDLE relied on the Force for survival. During her many decades in isolation, YADDLE reflected on the lessons of her late master. Again and again, she embraced and eventually achieved unity with the Force. Many vicious predators wandered into YADDLE's cave, and she too learned the art of combat, an aspect of the Force she had little experience in, for survival. Using a simple wooden stick to defeat vicious creatures several times her size, it was during these years that she became known as the One Below by the Kobans. YADDLE had resigned to the fact that she could not escape, and had come to peace with herself. When YADDLE was presented with an opportunity for escape, large shifts in the planet's mantle had caused powerful earthquakes all over Koba. The impoverished people of Koba, still recovering from Tulak's tyrannical reign, were not prepared for such natural disasters, and could do nothing to stop the remains of their once spectacular civilization falling to pieces. An earthquake caused a minor avalanche in YADDLE's pit, and for the first time in over a century, a young Jedi Padawan saw daylight. YADDLE's happiness at finally escaping did not last long. She sensed suffering and despair all around her. What had remained after various famines and plagues had now been decimated by the earthquakes. YADDLE had long since forgiven the past generations of Kobans who had acted as her jailers, and she felt deeply sorry for the people who were suffering because of Tulak's oppressive time in charge. She provided as much help to the Kobans as she possibly could, and, with the Kobans struggling to rebuild the broken society, YADDLE declined a request to return to the Jedi Temple on Coruscant to resume her Jedi training, declaring that she would not return while her work on Koba remained unfinished. Although the work was difficult and the resources had been almost depleted, the people of Koba were inspired to continue rebuilding their broken world by YADDLE's spirit and dedication. They built a bridge in Pulvin Kutt's name over the gorge he had been killed in honor of the late Jedi Knight. YADDLE became the savior of the Koban population, but she refused to accept any honors or rewards. She worked with the children of Koba, teaching them what she had learned as a Jedi Padawan. Tulok's son, Kallet, had replaced his father as a warlord, and had come to Koba to claim his inheritance. Kallet was even more ruthless than his father, and intended to take whatever was worth taking from the devastated planet, and then leave it for good. He fired upon the villages, destroying much of what the Kobans had built. Kallet and his fellow soldiers arrived at YADDLE's village, disgusted at the poor condition the villagers were in. Deciding they would be useless as slaves or warriors, Kallet stole the Kobans' few valuables. Although the Kobans were too weak to fight, YADDLE was not. She challenged Kallet, and when he refused to leave the Kobans in peace, YADDLE engaged him in a duel. YADDLE, using only a wooden stick with which she had honed her combat abilities during her imprisonment, defeated the dictator, liberating the Koban people. When YADDLE returned to the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, the Jedi Council determined that she had achieved unity with the Force, and that she did not need any additional training. The Council proposed that YADDLE be elevated to the position of Jedi Master, and offered a seat on the Jedi Council, even though she was still a Padawan. Master Yoda, feeling that it was too strong a deviance from the typical Jedi code and Jedi training, was the only council member against YADDLE's elevation. However, through examining her story through a quick glimpse into her future, Yoda backed down, and despite having some doubts still, allowed YADDLE to join the ranks of the Jedi Council between 44 and 37 BBY. In the latter year, she was present in the High Council chamber for Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn and his apprentice Obi-Wan Kenobi's assignment as bodyguards to Baroness Amino of the Vena system. After becoming a Jedi Master, YADDLE went on to train dozens of Padawans, including Oppo Rancis and the Epigeos brand. Rancis, the Thespian male, was a shrewd tactician and practitioner of battle meditation, and eventually joined YADDLE on the council. Brand was bash and overconfident, and YADDLE did not take another Padawan after Brand passed his trials for knighthood around the time of the invasion of Naboo in 32 BBY. YADDLE was eventually appointed as the head of the Librarians' Assembly, working with curator Ashka Boda to maintain the Jedi Temple's vast collections of various holocrons, scrolls, and Sith artifacts, as well as gathering and studying new books and artifacts to increase Jedi learning. Under YADDLE's leadership, the Assembly increased the collection and made several important discoveries. When not at the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, YADDLE stayed at the Auxiliary Jedi Training Center at Camparis, offering important lessons to initiates who did not live at the temple full-time. In 33 BBY, YADDLE was part of the council who sent a number of Jedi to the Yinkori system to deal with troublesome Yinkori. YADDLE had knowledge of the journals of the Thalorant's Well, which contained the little-known fact that the Yinkori, like the Hutts, were completely immune to mental manipulation by the Force. Several teams of Jedi were sent to the Yinkori system to deal with the crisis, including many council members, but YADDLE stayed behind with some of the less military-minded counselors, including her former Padawan Oppo Rancis, Quirmian Master Yale Proof, and Grandmaster Yoda. With many of the Jedi counselors gone, and with the Yinkori being manipulated by a third party, the Jedi Temple was attacked by a group of Yinkori. The Yinkori warriors killed the temple guards and Jude Roses. However, when they advanced further, they found the group of over a dozen Jedi waiting for them with their lightsabers drawn. YADDLE, wielding a green Shoda lightsaber, helped defeat the vicious invaders. After the Yinkori were all killed, YADDLE went to further study the holocron of Thalorant's Well, as the teams of Jedi had not discovered the Yinkori Command Center, which they were searching for. Thalorant's Well mentioned a fourth unknown world, a lifeless rock named ymca, known as within world of the Ymca tongue. YADDLE, as well as Starwars had previously assumed the world to not only have mythological means, but with the command center still undiscovered, YADDLE began to wonder if the name was used literally, and that the command center might have been inside the fourth planet. She told the Jedi Council of her suspicions, but they were interrupted by a message from Master Windu. The teams of Jedi had located the hiding space of the command center, and YADDLE's theory was correct. The Ymca headquarters was located inside a lifeless world close to the Ymca sun. The Jedi on Ymca were successful, but the mission was not without its losses. Padawan Thene Fida, Knight Lilith Tusis, and Counselor Micah Gillett had all perished on the mission. Sometime in 33 BBY, Jedi Masters Yaddle, Vigure, Depa Billaba, and Qui-Gon Jinn, and Jinn's Padawan learner Obi-Wan Kenobi, went to Azmaru, where they were attacked by the Nebula Front, but managed to defeat them and survive. Yaddle was present on the Jedi High Council when they were confronted by Qui-Gon Jinn, who claimed that he had found a boy who he believed to be the prophesized Chosen One. The Council later tested the boy, named Anakin Skywalker, and found him to be incredibly gifted in the ways of the Force, but vulnerable to the dark side. Qui-Gon refused to accept their denial of the boy. They then sent him on a new mission to Naboo. For some reason, Yaddle, Oppo Rancis, and Ural Proof were the only Jedi counselors to remain at the Jedi Temple when Qui-Gon was killed by the mysterious Sith warrior Darth Maul. In 32 BBY, Yaddle participated in a Jedi mission during the time of the Uradu Trade Summit. Soon after, Yaddle, along with the other Jedi Masters on the Council, were confronted by Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn and his apprentice Obi-Wan Kenobi. She watched as Qui-Gon requested that young Anakin Skywalker be tested for admission into the Jedi Order. According to Qui-Gon, the boy was the chosen one of the Jedi prophecy. After testing the boy, the Council decided that the boy was not to be trained due to emotional attachment to his mother. Several years later, Yaddle volunteered to travel to the mid-rim planet of Malastare to mediate negotiations between the government of Lannick and a terrorist organization known as the Red Laro. The people of Lannick had endured a devastating war against the Red Laro for several years, with heavy casualties on each side. In 32 BBY, the Red Laro declared a stalemate, wanting to begin the peace process and rebuild the planet. It was decided that the negotiations should take place on a neutral planet, and the Grand Governors of Malastare expressed interest in hosting the meetings. The Judicial Department of the Chancellor requested that the Jedi be sent to the Jungle Planet to act as arbiters between the two groups. 6 council members volunteered to go: Yaddle, Plo Koon, Evan Piel, Mace Windu, Adi Gallia, and Ki-Adi-Mundi, as long as Moody's Padawan Asharad Het went along as well. Unknown to the Jedi, one of their hosts, the Grand Senator Akis Mo, had allied himself with the Red Laro, as well as a seedy religious organization known as the Order of the Fib. The leader of the Red Laro had agreed to give the Grand Corporations access to Lannick's unspoiled resources if Mo helped to get them into power. The Grand Senator had organized the meetings at the same time as the Phobos Memorial Run, one of the most prestigious pod races on Malastare, to draw attention away from the negotiations. After departing their Jedi cruiser on the surface of Malastare, Yaddle and the other Jedi were escorted to their quarters by Grand Senators Baskil Yezrim and Ainsley Team. As they walked through one of the Grand's many palaces, Master Yaddle as well as Evan Pyle and Adi Gallia sensed that they were being followed. Piel and Adi Gallia doubled back and confronted the two men, a Fib priest and a Red Laro rebel, who, after firing on a pair of Jedi counselors, fled. After informing their grand hosts of the attack, Yaddle and the others continued on towards their quarters. Afterwards, a group of Gamorrean guards employed by Akis Mo attacked an Asharad Het, who reacted angrily, igniting his 2 crimson lightsabers, prepared to attack the Gamorreans. Yaddle stopped the Padawan from lashing out, using the Force to confuse the green-skinned humanoids, who took their places in the hall again. Yaddle told Het that she could easily have defeated them, but that a peaceful resolution was always better than a non-peaceful one. When the negotiations commenced, with Akis Mo as the agitator, neither the Lannick Prince nor the Red Larow leader took the Jedi seriously. The negotiations quickly broke down, despite the efforts of YADDLE and her fellow Jedi, and they adjourned the meeting until the next day, not long after it had begun. The military advisor to the Lannic prince, Hutar Zash, offered the 7 Jedi transport in his 2 speeders. On the way to their destination, the Lannic drivers turned on the Jedi, to the Jedi's surprise. Hutar and the others revealed their allegiance to the Red Larow, and showed the Jedi explosives strapped to their chests. While YADDLE's group managed to defeat the rebels in their speeder, the other team did not fare so well. Even Pyle, Mace Windu, and YADDLE were thrown off the speeder, and eventually caught onto part of the pod racer belonging to the Dug Sebulba. Sebulba managed to shake them off, but YADDLE managed to fire a grappling hook at the pod racer. However, the wire was severed when Alder Beto's attempt to shoot Sebulba missed. When the Jedi seemingly plummeted to their deaths, YADDLE took control of the other speeder, piloting it below the 3 falling Jedi, saving their lives. Knowing the Red Larow had gone too far to back out, the Jedi set a course for Lannic Prince's quarters, expecting to find Red Larow assassins there. They jumped off the speeder and smashed through the ornate glass roof, lightsabers drawn. Several Red Larow terrorists, including their leader Zug and 2 Fib priests, were in the Lannic's chambers, as well as 2 Ack dogs that Zug let loose. The Jedi defeated the terrorists, and YADDLE saved YADDLE's life, killing an Ack dog that was attacking her by stabbing her through the eye. The Jedi apprehended the head Fib priest, but Zug managed to escape, using a jetpack to propel himself out of the building, through a sizable hole in the roof left by the Jedi. However, Zug did not get far. He was sucked into the engine of a pod racer and died instantly. The corrupt Granish Senator Axmo, accompanied by several Grand soldiers, arrived just after Zug's death, feigning that he had no knowledge of the plot to kill the prince. He told the Jedi that the negotiations were over, and that they must leave at once. Mace Windu went to Nar Shaddaa to stop those responsible for smuggling the Ack dogs from their homeworld, while YADDLE and the others returned a surviving Ack dog back to Harel Cal. In 26 BBY, YADDLE was sent to Mawan along with Obi-Wan Kenobi and his Padawan Anakin Skywalker. Their mission was to try to restore peace to the lawless planet. However, YADDLE sacrificed her life for those of the people of Mawan by using the Force to absorb a bioweapon released by Granta Omega, which killed her instantly. By doing so, she saved the city of Natan. YADDLE was 483 years old at the time of her death. YADDLE was the last Jedi Council member to die before the Clone Wars, with her place being filled by Shaak Ti. Over time, YADDLE's personal collection of artifacts and trinkets grew so large that she could fill several rooms with them. She became one of the most revered members of the Jedi Order, and her fellow Jedi would often consult her for her wisdom and knowledge on many subjects. She came to be known as one of the most compassionate and thoughtful Jedi Masters. In fact, YADDLE was so compassionate that she helped the people of Koba rebuild their society, even though they had trapped her in a cave for a century. Instead of resenting the Kobans, she felt sorry for them. She was also a mentor to many of the students in the Jedi Order, offering help and advice to troubled students. She was also known to have turned a blind eye to any pranks the younglings would make, and even to have slipped sweets into their pockets. YADDLE rarely spoke, but when she did, she spoke in anastrophe, the same unusual ways as fellow council member Yoda, placing verbs after the object and the subject. YADDLE used as few words as possible when speaking on the Jedi High Council, and had the habit of summing up conclusions that the other council members would have reached eventually. YADDLE's exposure to little-known aspects of the Force granted her powers rarely used by the Jedi, including the ancient and forbidden Jedi combat art of Morocco, a technique which enabled the user to rapidly slow down the bodily functions of its target to the point of death. The Jedi Council felt that it was too dangerous to be taught to the Order as a whole, and so it was restricted to only a handful of Jedi Masters. This and many other dark secrets were kept securely by YADDLE and her colleagues in the Jedi Library. YADDLE was also known for possessing the extremely rare Force light power, being the only Jedi of her time who was able to use it. A Jedi counselor, she was not as martial as many of her fellow counselors. However, after being promoted to Jedi Master, she became one of the few Jedi to wield an orange-bladed lightsaber. Despite her preference of using the Force in battle, YADDLE was highly proficient in Form 3 and Form 4 of classic lightsaber combat, ranking as one of the most skilled duelists in the Jedi Order. She was also an expert pilot, as she showed when she saved her fellow Jedi on Malastare shortly after the Battle of Naboo. In addition to this, YADDLE was able to stop Granta Omega's evil scheme to poison the planet Malwan with a chemical weapon, showing amazing speed and aptitude of the Force. Under the ground, YADDLE was able to break the cuffs on Anakin Skywalker's arms before Omega could administer the lethal change, then jumped through the launch tube after the chemical bomb. She suspended herself in the air, then spoke to Anakin telepathically about the destiny of the Chosen One and how he must live up to his responsibility. With these last wise words, YADDLE used the Force to absorb the bomb into herself, imploding and unfortunately dying, making sure that nobody on Malwan would be exposed to the lethal chemical explosion. Anakin himself never felt such a massive use of the Force, as YADDLE drew it into herself like a web. So what'd you guys think of Jedi Master YADDLE? Please let me know in the comments down below. If you haven't already, please be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video.